begins, and you can stop that carnage, just like what happened in Indiana just a few days ago. Thankfully, that young 22-year-old had his handgun with him. It obviously was more than what a lot of folks want to limit in magazine capacities, and because of that, he was able to stop the threat in 15 seconds and save maybe 100 lives. I mean, this lunatic had, obviously the will and the desire and the ability to kill a lot of people that day in that mall. Thankfully, an armed citizen was there to stop that threat.
Okay, and let me get you on record for what you believe about teachers being armed in schools.
Yeah, I don't think we should require it of every teacher, but I think we should absolutely allow for a teacher that's willing to get the training. I'm a big proponent of training, as you know. I don't think you just hand guns out to everybody and say good luck. I think training is vitally important, and so I think a teacher or a custodian or a principal or any other someone working in the cafeteria, any adult that's willing to get the training should be able to carry. And if that was allowed, you would have more people on campus armed in proximity when something like Uvalde happens inside the classroom. Ready to stop that threat immediately. When you do that, you save lives. When you have a gun-free zone, it means people are going to lose their lives. That's just the evidence we've seen.
All right, so let me first talk about one of the dynamics you brought up in reference to a 22-year-old who was in lawful carry of a firearm, was able to stop an additional murder, in my opinion. Okay, I agree with you on that. But here's the thing, we're talking about policy. Right, there's always going to be a nuance to policy conversation. For example, there are a certain amount of people every year, they die because they wore a seatbelt, okay? Because the seatbelt was on them. However, the policy is that the vast majority of individuals who wear a seatbelt will have their lives saved. Yeah. And just because a few people will die, unfortunately, every year because they had a seatbelt on and it created a complication during the accident, that does not negate the good policy sense of enforcing seatbelt laws, because seatbelts do save way more people under that policy. So here's the point I want to make to you. I would prefer to have a societal construct where we do not have a culture that's gun heavy. The fact that we have so much access to guns and artillery creates a problematic dynamic where individuals like you say, well, the only way to solve it is with more guns. Well, that's the problem in the first case. That's your policy issue. And let me go to the ruling of the United States Supreme Court in the New York case. Clarence Thomas writes that this was a dynamic of self-defense. He put it in his summary. And I was really surprised by this from Justice Thomas. So let me ask you this question before I continue. Do you believe that bearing arms is a requirement based on a self-defense protocol in America? Do you believe that?
Absolutely, yes. And okay. I think our biggest disagreement would be on your premise that it's the presence of guns that causes people to commit crime. It's the heart of man that causes people to commit crime. It's the depravity of man or mental illness or all of those, factors.
Why not allow it to be legal to have grenades then?
I think it should be legal to have grenades.
You say okay?
I want to have a grenade,
legal.
but yeah.
Wait a minute. You said something interesting here. Maybe you got some linear logic.
Yeah, it's the nuance of the policy, as you said. Go ahead. Sorry.
You believe that it's okay for people to have artillery that's military grade weapon artillery, because artillery doesn't really impact societal elements. It's just the heart of man, right?
I don't just believe that was the original intent of the Constitution.
Well, let's talk about the original intent of the Constitution. I'm glad you brought me back to that. Yeah. So Justice Thomas writes that this is basically constitutional, and what New York did was unconstitutional because of the need of self-defense that's constitutionally determined. Sir, can you do me one favor? Can you find in the Constitution for me, where does it say that bearing arms is for self-defense?
Right there in the Second Amendment, that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and that's necessary for the security of a free state. So you need a well-regulated militia necessary for the security of a free state.
Well-regulated militia. So what I'm asking you to do is very simple. Can you find in the Constitution, for me, maybe I'm ignorant of it, can you show me where it says that your right to bear arms is an illumination of your right of self-defense, individual defense? Can you find that for me in the Constitution?
Yes, 100%.
Yes,
so as you know, Dr. Ritchie, as Jefferson said, on any question of construction in terms of the Constitution, trying to figure out what does it say and mean, carry yourself back to the time, Jefferson said, to when it was actually put into the Constitution, and listen to the people that put it in the Constitution as they explain what it was intended to do and what it meant. And so all of the founding fathers, I can show you, I've got a whole book of quotes from the founding fathers saying that that's exactly what the Second Amendment was about. Resistance to sudden violence. They called it the first law of nature, the right of self-defense. And it was something you could not give up to society, even if you would, because you want to protect your family. I want to protect my family, and having that ability to have that arm was essential. And so that's why they put it in the Second Amendment the way that they did.
That's really interesting, because James Madison, who adopted the language from Virginia, by the way, James Madison and other constitutional framers said that they wanted to stop the creation
Hello and welcome to the show, Unbossed. So glad you are here on this fine Friday afternoon. And I have a fantastic co-host with me today. I have Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I am great. I'm glad you're wonderful. Anything you want us to know about what is happening in your world on your show?
Just the same subjects that you all talk about that cause my brain to suffer greatly, melts. It's toxic, but it's cathartic to see other people talk about it as well, because I feel like it makes me feel more sane. It makes me feel more grounded to know that I'm not suffering alone here. So I'm happy to be here.
No, you are not suffering alone. And you have a new show with a group of bad A leftists called Leftist Mafia. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Leftist Mafia is a bunch of people from indie media. It includes myself, David Dole of the Rational National, Matt Binder, Lance from the Serfs, Illuminati, and Olaimi Olorin. And we all kind of bring our different perspectives and we mesh politics with pop culture. And it's kind of just like a lefty hangout session. Sometimes it's really serious. Sometimes we just talk about television shows. But it's a really great time. And we just finished our 7th episode. It's now available right now. But yeah, I'd encourage everyone to check it out because it's a really fun time. It's nice to get a little bit of a mental break from all of the politics and just like kick it with cool people.
Yeah, I encourage folks to check it out as well. You can check that out on YouTube, Leftist Mafia. And soon they're going to have yours truly on there too. So I'm so looking forward to joining.
That's going to be a good one.
A very good one. On today's show, Mike and I are going to be talking about the shadow president. He is at it again. That is none other than Senator Joe Manchin from the great state of West Virginia. And corporate crime prosecutions hit a new low. Yeah, from the DOJ. We'll check that out as well. And finally, drama within the right-wing pundit community. Who knew? We're going to let you know what's popping there. The shadow president, Joe Manchin, is at it again. And it makes me ask myself, WTF neoliberals?
We will now kneel.
Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Entitlements, then cuts are off the table.
Entitlements from the standpoint, when you say entitlements, people look at that differently. They have a different termination, depending on where you come from. An entitlement, I don't look at Social Security or Medicare as entitlement. You've paid for those, okay? But on that, is there ways that we can make sure that we have the finances in order to take care of it? Is there abuse in the system? The people that have earned it and paid for it, but is there other people that haven't and things of this sort? Or is the system basically flawed, hasn't been corrected?
This man has lost his mind, really. Some people who don't deserve it. What about the corporate welfare hounds? Do they deserve that corporate welfare that they're getting? Why does Joe Manchin hate the everyday workaday person so much, West Virginia? Mike and I trying to understand why y'all keep sending this dude back to the United States Senate, because he really does not care about the average working person in this country. Matter of fact, he has a disdain for them. So that was none other than Senator Joe Manchin, the shadow president, speaking with Fox News at Davos, using the debt limit as an excuse for potentially targeting Social Security. Check out this headline. Advocates say, hell no, exclamation point, bold, underline, message in a bottle, baby, as Manchin pitches Social Security deal with the GOP. The West Virginia Democrats said that, quote, we have a debt problem, end quote, and argued that members, that senator, and signaled that senators should check out whether or not they're gonna cut Social Security, even though the program can't by law add to any long-term deficit. I want you to understand what we are saying here right now. They just making stuff up as they go along. Under the legislation that Manchin has introduced alongside Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, Congress would establish bipartisan rescue committees for the nation's trust fund programs, including Social Security and Medicare, and give the panels 180 days to devise, quote, legislation that restores solvency and otherwise improves each. In other words, we're gonna cut these programs and the hell with the everyday people who need them. There's something wrong with these folks. Manchin and Romney's legislation known as the Trust Act should be Mistrust Act, Distrust Act, No Trust Act, is explicitly modeled after the infamous Simpson-Bowles Commission that recommended deep cuts to Social Security in 2011. And this is coming from Common Dreams. Now, the man said in his remarks that folks earned that Social Security, but still fixed his mouth, as my grandmother would say, fixed his mouth to say that they still gonna decide whether it needs to be cut. Now check out this headline. Even though the 2022 trust report shows that protecting and expanding Social Security is fully affordable. You can't make this sugar up. You just cannot. Check out this tweet from Security Works. Hell no to negotiating with legislative terrorists. Y'all better go ahead on Social Security Works. We got a little technical difficulties, but we're gonna work through this. Hell no to even a single penny of cuts to Social Security earned, underline, underscore, bold, message in a bottle benefits. Hell no to fast track commissions designed to cut benefits behind closed doors. Social Security Works, we with you. Mike and I are all the way with you. Hell to the no. And a reminder that millions of Americans rely on Social Security. As of 2022, 66 million Americans receive Social Security benefits, and that's not just our elders either. There are people who are disabled, otherly able that receive Social Security as well. And as of October 2022, the average Social Security benefit of $1,550.48 per month. That is not a lot of money. There are 46.7 million American retirees who receive Social Security. Mike, I'm just beside myself.
Yeah, it's absolutely infuriating because they're playing with people's lives here. A cut to Social Security could mean the difference between eating and starving. And Joe Manchin admitted it, that this is not an entitlement. I mean, you are entitled to it because you paid into this. This is your money and they're trying to take your money from you. But they know that this is unpopular, which is why they have to use all kinds of weasel words. If you all remember last week, Republican lawmaker Rick Allen, he said, we're not gonna cut Social Security. But on top of that, he then ended up saying, but we will raise the retirement age because people want to work. They want to work more. And they have to find some excuse. Another excuse that they use is, well, it's going insolvent. So if we don't do something, then it's gonna go bankrupt and future generations won't have it. That's also not true. The simple thing that needs to be done is lift the cap on taxable income. And that's it, the problem is solved. But even in its current state, Social Security isn't going insolvent anytime soon. They'll say, oh, well, by 2035, and then next year it'll be 2036. It's always about 10 years, and then it pays out 80% of benefits. So they want you to think that we have to take action to save the program, but that's nothing more than a guise for them to cut it. They've been salivating over it for decades now, and don't let them. Whenever they start talking seriously like this, people need to understand that this is a hair on fire moment. Like, we need to be screaming at the top of our lungs because this is a lifeline for people. My mom, for example, cannot survive without Social Security. She also has to work, but without Social Security, I don't know how she lives. So, and she's just one person with millions of people, in the same predicament. So it's infuriating, but these rich people don't care. Joe Manchin, multimillionaire, he has, he's a coal baron. He doesn't care. He doesn't even think about the lives of normal people. So it's deeply, deeply infuriating to me.
Yeah, it's heartless and it is immoral, and they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
I picture dialing 911. What's your emergency? We being robbed. Send help.
Exactly.
Rob our home. People like the shadow president Joe Manchin and Senator Mitt Romney, and anybody else in Congress that believes that we need to cut Social Security. Elders, y'all need to take it to the streets. You need to let these folks, y'all better take a page out of what France did with Mike and I gonna talk about that. Take it to the streets. They try to come for your Social Security. It is one of the most important programs of the 20th century to lift people out of poverty. And Mike just gave the story of his mom. There are millions of people. My dad, same thing, millions of people just like that. These people are immoral. Yeah, they are. But you know what? Senator Joe Manchin is really just following in the footsteps of a certain someone during his time in the Senate. Watch this.
Have you been on the floor of the Senate? You were in the Senate for a few years.
Yeah.
Time and time again, talking about the necessity, with pride, about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, cutting veterans programs.
No.
You never said that.
No. I introduced a balanced budget amendment in 1984. It got nowhere. I'm one of those Democrats who voted for the constitutional amendment to balance the budget. I have introduced on 4 occasions, entire plans to balance the budget. I tried with Senator Grassley back in the 80s to freeze all government spending, including Social Security.
Oh, Senator Joe Biden was very animated when he said including Social Security. I mean, he said that with so much feeling. The grand bargain with the Republicans gonna cut grandma and grandpa's Social Security, baby, out of his own mouth. So for all the neoliberals who might salivate after they see this clip, the man said it himself. He wasn't set up. That was him talking. It wasn't his stunt double. So there you have it. You can't make this up. And furthermore, Biden's fixation on cutting Social Security dates back to the Reagan era. One of the Ronald Reagan's first major moves as president was to implement a mammoth tax cut tilted towards the wealthy and to increase defense spending. Biden, a Delaware senator at the time, supported both moves. So again, the shadow president just mimicking the current president. And Biden has continued to pretend to be a staunch defender of Social Security as president. But that is revisionist history, even taking credit where it has been not been due. Check this out. Biden has repeatedly noted in recent weeks that Social Security payments will rise substantially in 2023. He has invoked the increase while reciting his accomplishments as president. It is true that the 2023 increase of 8.7% is the biggest in years, but actually the biggest since 1981. But that's not because of any positive Biden achievement. That's coming from CNN reporting. So stop the exaggeration. Further, the increase is known as a cost of living adjustment, or COLA. Why will there be an 8.7% cost of living adjustment in 2023? Because average prices in the third quarter of 2022, as measured by the Consumer Price Index for urban wage owners and clerical workers, were up 8.7% from average prices in the third quarter of 2021. So in other words, this is not really a raise. Are you hearing me, good people? Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, that's who I'm calling on today. We need to stop being complicit in our own demise. Michael, I don't know, if other folks don't care about their own grandma, own grandpa, their mamas and daddies in the future themselves, I don't know what else is gonna shake these people from understanding that we are not dealing with honest brokers in that Congress, or in this issue, not even the president of the United States.
Yeah, it's particularly scary because this moment would be a great excuse for someone like Joe Biden. He can claim, my hands were tied, I couldn't do anything. The debt ceiling needed to be raised, and I had to agree with what the Republicans wanted. Otherwise, the full faith and credit of the United States is on the line. So this is a really horrifying moment, and people really need to pay attention to this. If there's gonna be cuts, Biden has the excuse. It's an optimal moment for Republicans, and even the Democrats who don't want to do this, don't want to go through with this, do they have the fight in them? There's so much riding against us currently, and I really want people to understand that this is a very serious moment. And I think that we're probably in more danger of Social Security getting cut now than back in the grand bargain days in 2011. So I don't think people understand how serious this moment is, and Americans need to know that once we open the door to cutting Social Security or doing some type of reform, it's only going to get worse from there. They tried this in Chile, where they privatized Social Security, and it was a disaster. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to privatize it yet, but that's ultimately their goal. It starts by undermining support for it. And once you start to cut it, once you make it less efficient, then you could pitch that to people and say, well, look, it doesn't work. So maybe since the government can't handle it, then this private corporation is better suited to handle your Social Security. This is what neoliberalism is, outsourcing all of the government's responsibilities to private corporations. And they've been wanting to do this for a very long time. So cutting it, if they're successful here, is only the beginning, but that in and of itself is incredibly damaging. So this story is extremely infuriating, and I really hope people are paying attention.
I do too, Mike, and we're going to continue to cover this. This is truly a 911, as you and I were discussing before. This is a hair on fire moment. You know, I had a boss that I once worked for, mayor of the city of Cleveland, Mayor Michael R. White, and he used to ask his cabinet or say to his cabinet, if your hair is on fire, you ought to act like your hair is on fire. If your hair is on fire, you're not going to sit back cool, calm, and collected. Everybody is going to know that your hair is on fire and you need some relief. But this is indeed a hair on fire moment, and everybody, Lottie Dottie and everybody, to quote Grandma again, should be actively engaged in this fight. If they do this, there should be some consequences and repercussions for this come the next election cycle. And had the Democrats fought hard enough, they wouldn't have lost the House. See, if they had to put some of that fire and brimstone and venom against Republicans instead of coming for progressives, hello, somebody, then maybe we would not be in this situation. Dire consequences. And Mike and I are not making this up. This is a matter of whether somebody can pay their rent, pay their mortgage, purchase their prescription drugs that are too damn high, the rent too damn high, prescription drugs too damn high, eggs too damn high, everything too damn high. And then you got somebody like Joe Manchin, who's a multi-millionaire with a cavalier attitude. Listen, folks, this is real. We need to take it to the streets like they did in France. Corporate crime prosecutions hit a low in 2022. White collar criminals are going unchecked, and 2022 was not any different. In fact, it was worse. Check out this headline: corporate and white collar prosecutions hit all-time low in FY fiscal year, folks, 2022. During the last fiscal year, which ended last September, only 4,180 white collar defendants were prosecuted. White collar prosecutions last year were lower than in any year during the Trump administration. Let me read that one more time. I need you to bold it, underline it, exclamation point, message in a bottle on a train and not on Southwest. White collar prosecutions last year were the lowest in any year during the Trump administration. FY 2022 figures are even lower than FY 2020 when, due to the pandemic and federal partial shutdown, federal criminal enforcement activities of all kinds were sharply curtailed, and we understood that. This after Biden promised to go after white collar criminals with a strategy on countering corruption. Promises made, baby, but promises not kept. Strategy on countering corruption, let's take a look at them. Modernizing, coordinating, and resourcing US government efforts to better fight corruption. Curbing illicit finance. Holding corrupt actors accountable. Preserving and strengthening the multilateral anti-corruption architecture. All these damn words to say absolutely nothing. Improving diplomatic engagement and leveraging foreign assistance. Resources to advance policy goals. White House Gov. That's just a whole lot of nothingness. Just say you're gonna go after white collar criminals, okay? Keep it simple. So Big Mama and Big Papa can understand what you're saying. Because you know what? You know, Mike, I served in the Cleveland City Council with a giant. I mean, she's not on this plane of existence anymore. But when directors would come to the council table, Cleveland City Council, with all kinds of fancy talk, she would say the following to them: that was clear as mud. And that stuff that I just rattled off was absolutely clear as mud.
It reminds me of when you're like an 18-year-old and you're trying to create a resume for the first time and you really want to sound professional. So you're like, I coordinated tasks for shift operations. It's like, just say you were a shift leader. Like you don't need to add all the fluff. It doesn't make it any more substantive. You could just tell that you're trying to BS it. Just say it that way. Just the least amount of words, that's preferable. But this story to me, it's sad that I feel so numb to it because it's so unsurprising, as if we needed more evidence that we live in a two-tier justice system. But here you are, in case you were still skeptical, we live in a two-tier justice system where the wealthy can get away with doing basically whatever they want, and poor people get prosecuted for smoking pot, anything. It's so ridiculous, but this is the dystopian society that we live in. And I feel like most people are privy to this information now that justice is certainly not equal. But for those two of you left who didn't know, well, now you know.
There it is. Breaking news. Mike just broke news. Breaking news. We live in a two-tiered system where the wealthy and well-connected get away with a whole bunch of stuff in this country. And we need to break this stuff up. Well, they got an F on this assignment, obviously, and they need to go and talk to a lot of grandmamas about how to make this simple and just go after white-collar criminals. And on top of that, criminal referrals for white-collar crimes are often not pursued at all. Let's take a look at this chart. Percentage of the federal criminal referrals prosecuted. And you can see all them lovely numbers right there. Not a whole lot. And the punishment these white-collar criminals receive is a slap on the wrist, literally. The average prison sentence for white-collar crimes, such as fraud, like defrauding people, stealing their money, is only 27 months, even though white-collar criminals can face sentences up to 30 years. These lengthy punishments rarely occur. Far more commonly, these criminals only face small sentences or fines. Michael, that's the story of America. Welcome to America.
Yeah, exactly. And they do this because they know that they can get away with it. They know that they're privileged, and they, even if they were referred for prosecution, they can afford attorneys. And so because they know that they can get away with it, they do it. I mean, this knowledge, it changes their behavior, right? I know that I can't walk into a store and just steal a PlayStation 5 because I know they would lock me up in jail. But if I could get away with just taking a PlayStation 5, would I? Maybe. But I know that there are boundaries. The law treats just normal people different than they treat elites. And that's something that people need to realize. I think part of the problem with America is that we have this idea that maybe we shouldn't be so hard on the rich and elites because I could be an elite someday. It's not gonna happen. You're statistically more likely to get struck by lightning or bitten by a shark. You're not gonna become a millionaire or a billionaire. Statistically, it's very unlikely. So this is why we need to enforce the laws on these elites. We need to tax these elites and treat them like everyone else. I feel like this shouldn't need to be said, but it does need to be said, unfortunately, because when you live in a late stage capitalist society, these things, like, we kind of come to just accept that this is normal, when really we shouldn't be okay with this. We shouldn't be desensitized. We should be furious when we see stats like this, especially considering the white collar crime compared to like immigration and narcotics. Like, we see what the government's priorities are.
Absolutely, we should be enraged. And look, I mean, Mike, you're absolutely right. Statistically speaking, everybody that's searching to be that multimillionaire and billionaire, look, hey, keep reaching for the sky. I don't want to crush your dreams, but the likelihood is that happening, it's not gonna happen. You're gonna be closer to the poorest person than you are to the ultra wealthy. But even if you were fortunate enough to become ultra wealthy, would you cheat the system? Would you cheat like that? Would you want to see a two-tiered system where poorer people get treated differently, where their lives matter less? I mean, really, would you want to be that kind of rich person or ultra wealthy person? I wouldn't want to be that kind of person either. So, look, reach for the stars, but don't be a crook doing it. Riding on private planes, starting a newsletter to say that you wasn't the crypto crook that you are. Looking at you, Bankman-Fried. Y'all, I'm on the road. I don't have my fire extinguisher with me, so I'm gonna have to find another way to put out the fire. Mike and I'll be back after this.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that Black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger Black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
And welcome back to the show. This is my absolute favorite part. I want to let you know that right after this show, Galaxy Brain is coming up with Ben. You don't want to miss that on Twitch. Go to twitch.tv/TYT. Check it out. Ben is absolutely fabulous. Now for our comments, we got DJ Dragon. Hey, DJ, love seeing Mike with you, Nina. I feel like you both understand and see the world the way I do. Validation is valuable. Thank you both. Thank you, DJ. Mike and I, we got you, baby. We got you. And on Twitch, Sam. Hey, Sam. Nina looking fly as usual. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. This is my biker girl look for the day. And Gomez, all hail Queen Nina. You know, if we got to have a monarch, you know, I ain't for it. But if we must, Mike, I want to be the queen. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. So thank you, Gomez, the first of her name and a protector of truth and fire extinguishers. Thank you, Gomez, so much. And Winston on YouTube Super Chat, Nina looking like a revolutionary for love and truth. I know that's right. I do got that Black Panther vibe going today. Yeah, you right about that, baby. Thank y'all all. You know what? I cannot say it enough. And you know I say it every time after I read your comments. We could not do this. Michael knows as an independent media force, all of us, none of us could do this kind of work without you. So just thank you so much for your support of TYT Network. And thank you so much for your support of Unbossed and yours truly. French unions, baby, they know how to do this thing. In France, workers of the world are fed up. People in France are fed up, and literally, baby, they took it to the streets. Take a look. What you just saw was over 1 million people across the country, at France that is, protesting President Emmanuel Macron's decision to raise the retirement age. Emboldened by the mass show of resistance French unions announced new strikes and protests on January 31st, vowing to try to get the government to back down on plans to push up the standard retirement age from 62 to 64. Macron says the measure, a central pillar of his second term, is needed to keep the pension system financially viable, but unions say it threatens hard-fought workers' rights. You better believe that. Now listen, America. And Mike, I want you to come in on this earlier. America, the man is raising the age from 62 to 64, and the people of France took to the streets. What is it going to take for us to take to the streets over the foolishness and mayhem that is going on in the United States of America? The French know how to do it. Mike?
Yeah, this leads me to think about the difference between the French and us Americans here. We're reactive, they're active, right? So we wait for the bad thing to happen and then we react sometimes. Whereas they try to stop it from getting that bad in the first place. And I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance to where people don't think it's gonna happen, or I don't even know if people are just numb and beaten down and it's like, well, they're gonna do it anyway, so who cares? But just to see everyone take to the streets, it's really inspiring because we're talking about a retirement age of 62 to 64 in the United States. Like my father-in-law is trying to retire currently, and he's trying to get that done by like 67 or before 70. Like the reason why there's these differences is because they fought. Like the politicians in France, they're afraid of the people. Whereas the people in America, we're afraid of the politicians. And we've got to change this mindset and get back to this thinking that we are their bosses. They're nothing without us. We pay their salaries, we elect them. Without us, they wouldn't have these jobs. So I want people to reimagine American politics and American government and understand that you are the boss of these politicians. They're subordinate to you. And so you can be that boss that's just never satisfied and constantly question them, hold them accountable. And we need to do that because if we did, then maybe we'd have a better healthcare system. Maybe we wouldn't constantly be worrying about cuts to Social Security or raising the retirement age. I just want us to learn from the French and just revolutionaries around the world who got things done that we couldn't accomplish here.
There it is. And I mean, 62, 64, I mean, you still spry as heaven. And they like, oh, hold on, what you're not gonna do, Macron, what you're not going to do. We're not gonna sit back and let you do this to us. We taking it to the streets. So in a country with an aging population and growing life expectancy, where everyone receives a state pension, did you hear that? Everyone receives a state pension. Macron's government says the reform is the only way to keep the system solvent. They always use that word. Unions propose a tax on the wealthy. Hello, somebody. That's what we need to do in the United States of America. Shadow President Joe Manchin, can you hear us now? Or more payroll contributions from employers to finance the pension system instead. In other words, they just not taking what this man got to say about this. They giving some recommendations on how you can make this right, how you can make this make sense. Or to quote Andrew Yang, in another way, you can make the math, okay? By doing the right thing on behalf of the people. The French ain't playing with these people. And this isn't the first time the French government has met resistance to such policies. Overhauling pensions has long been a controversial issue in France, with street protests halting reform efforts back in 1995, not that long ago. And successive governments facing stiff resistance to changes that eventually passed in 2004, 2008, and 2010. Now, much like the protests and strikes we're seeing here domestically, these workers are being bitten by the rising cost of living. Inflation is hurting everyone. So Macron's proposed pension reforms come as workers in France, as elsewhere, are being squeezed by rising food and energy prices or bills. Nurses and ambulance drivers in the United Kingdom are also thinking about going on strike on Thursday over pay and working conditions. So this is just what it is, and it's happening all across the world. Workers of the world unite. Michael, any final thoughts on this?
One thing that I want to point out is how the propaganda doesn't work there like it works here, because we see the same excuse. Like with Social Security, we always hear that it's going bankrupt and it's going to be insolvent. And I feel like Americans are either complacent or they accept that. Whereas in France, they're getting the same propaganda and they're rejecting it. They're saying, we're not going to be the ones who take the cut. Tax the wealthy. Like, why do we have to bear the burden of your failures? And so that's really inspiring. And I would like to, just as a personal, I guess, hobby, look at the media environment in France, because I'd argue that their propaganda isn't as brazen as it is here in the United States.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. And just one more point as we wrap up this segment, I want to remind people of how horrible 2022 was for the average worker. Let's put this up really quickly in terms of striking, violating the rights. The strike grew 63% in 2014 to 87% in 2022. Violating the right to form and join a trade union grew from 58% in 2014 to 77% in 2022. And workplace violence grew from 12% in 2021 to 26% in 2022. And this is coming from the World Economic Forum. Man, we got a whole lot of work to do. We need to get on it. France, y'all do y'all thing, baby. We got solidarity with you. Hopefully some of that will rub off here in America. I'm gonna sigh, but I'm not gonna do it. I wanna sigh, but I'm gonna hold my sigh in. The grift is strong, but it is worth $50 million. Yes, I said $50 million, but not for Steven Crowder. Take a look.
Big tech is in bed with Big Con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. Don't sign these contracts. I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. Let me go through this. If any of the major platforms issues a content strike such that Crowder cannot be monetized on such platform, the fee will be reduced by 25%. And then another 20% of it happens on Apple. And then another 10% of it happens on Facebook. And then another 10% of it happens on Spotify.
Now, this man's grift is strong, but is it worth $50 million? This dude is sitting up here complaining about being able to earn $50 million. He's not even talented. I mean, that is right-wing YouTuber Steven Crowder complaining about a $50 million contract with Daily Wire. I mean, he got the pure unadulterated gall. You guys know how I love to quote Grandma. This is a brass A monkey moment right here with this dude. He's talking about he ain't gonna name names. No, dude, name the names. You big and bad. Go ahead and name the name. Now, Daily Wire is a right-wing media company offering this person who has no talent $50 million. And he complaining about it. Now, how did this start? On Tuesday, Crowder launched a Stop the Big Con initiative and accused conservative media giants of being no better than big tech and putting profit over the honest defense of conservative values. Are you kidding me? I mean, this has to be a joke.
Yeah, it gets even more hilarious knowing that he wanted $120 million over 4 years. I mean, it just goes to show you why so many people on the left end up becoming grifters, because that's where the money is. And I'm not gonna name names here, we can, but like we know who we're talking about, who start off very progressive and now are saying all the things that right-wingers say. But it just, this whole story is really shocking to me because he's so brazen. So he is essentially currently setting himself up to be the next Daily Wire. And in order to do that, you have to make this big spectacle. You have to position yourself as the most virtuous conservative, untainted by big tech. And it's all part of his next grift. And I looked at the comments on his video. I shouldn't have done that because it killed my soul. And they're all buying it. It seems like they're buying it. They think, oh, wow, he really is principled. He really is doing this for us. He's not doing it for you. He's doing this because he wants more money and he's greedy. He doesn't care about you. You're working probably a minimum wage job, if not minimum wage, perhaps a job that you hate with your employer who exploits you, controls what time you have to be there, what you can wear, when you can go to the bathroom. And he's sitting here complaining because he was only offered $50 million. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, this is why the left has such a difficult time competing with the right. It's not because they're more persuasive. Their message is not persuasive, and everything that they say is wrong. It's because it's a numbers game. If you reach more people, if you get your message out there, you're just gonna appeal to more people. So this is just an insane story, and I hope that their feud continues, because the more that they expose each other, the more that we learn about the inner workings of the right-wing grifter sphere and just how much billionaire money is behind that. Because wow,
$50 million. You and I were talking about the Rush Hour movie. Mike, you take it away. Where?
Yeah, Chris Tucker, it reminded me of that scene where he said, $50 million, who do you think you got, Chelsea Clinton? I mean, Steven Crowder, you're not worth $50 million. You're the fact that he even has a platform is somebody who has that little talent, and I say little talent to be charitable, he has no talent, but he's just propped up by billionaires. That's it. That's it.
Stunning. And what was actually in the actual contract? The contract reads like a dream. 4 weeks of paid vacation, full editorial control over content, produce a staff to help promote and adapt content, and the right to retain ownership of any content Crowder produces prior to joining the Daily Wire. And this man is fixing his mouth, to quote my grandma, to complain. And don't forget, $50 million over a 4-year period with the possibility of an additional $25 million upon renewal. Seriously, dude. Now, Crowder complained that the proposal floated to him like the one from the Daily Wire was essentially slave contract. Now, let me straighten this dude out real quick. And I want y'all to hear me and hear me clearly. There is no such thing as a slave wage. Slaves didn't get a wage. You hear me? So maybe making low pay, which this dude's contract is far from low pay, but slave wages. See, he taking this a little too far. And Mike, the fact that you're saying that some folks believe him and are feeling sorry for him, that just tells me how wrong we are in this country. And remember, this was the same guy that tweeted this foolishness right here. Nothing says I'm full of SHIT like a guy literally begging to go back to the NFL after calling it just like slavery, the race baiting grift, not paying as well. You want to talk about grifting? Now, he was referring to Kaepernick. How dare he? Now, this is me right now. How dare he fix his mouth to say anything about Kaepernick, who has more talent in his pinky finger's nail than this dude has in his whole body. But meanwhile, let's put up this headline. President Biden brags about the numbers, but high inflation especially hurts Black and Hispanic Americans. So this stuff is real. It's really real in the field, And now we have the Daily Wire co-founder and co-CEO Jeremy Boring responded and called it out. He called out Crowder as well he should. Take a listen. They all fighting each other.
And how would we stay in business? And Stephen, this is a very important point. Stephen, again, I think the most entertaining, talented person in the conservative movement, I think one of the most entertaining and talented people in entertainment generally in the country today, has created a very successful content generation company, a very successful production company. But Stephen's never had to create the company that actually distributes, markets, and monetizes all of that content. He talks in his video about being one of the only true independent conservative voices. And I find that incredibly offensive. Stephen, the whole time I've known him, has worked for someone else, has been paid by someone else. That doesn't mean other people tell him what to say. He's a very independent voice, and that's good. So is Matt Walsh. So is Candace Owens. So is Ben Shapiro. So is Michael Knowles. So is Brett Cooper. But Stephen, as much or more than any of them, a very independent voice. But he's not exactly a self-made man.
Well, some of that stuff you said, I can agree with you. But Stephen coming for you. That's all this is about. He coming for you. He's going to be your competition. You sit up here whining and begging this dude when you can pick him a dime a dozen. Ain't nothing special about Steven Crowder. Nothing at all. We'll be back after this.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America. compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Hello, beloveds. I have a big announcement. I'm launching a new daily 1-hour show with the Young Turks called Unbossed with Nina Turner, starting October 17th. We are going to be taking on corruption in all of its forms, whether it's big money, big pharma, the injustice system, the establishment of both parties. All that we love is on the line. They keep coming for the people, not serving the people. Now we're coming for them. Anytime anyone, anywhere tries to take power from the people, that is where we will be together on Unbossed. And not only are we gonna take on these people, we're also gonna have a little joy while we fight. What is life without having some joy? The channel's already up, so go subscribe now, yes, right now, at youtube.com/unbossed, TYT.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Let's go!
Oh.
Okay. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh!
Wow. This is the weirdest game.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
Welcome back to the show. Mike did that. I know he probably tired of me calling him Michael. I don't know why I want to call him Michael. Mike did that. Make sure you check out the Leftist Mafia. Make sure you check out the Humanist Report. He is just a a fantastic, fantastic commentator. And he tells it like it is, baby. Straight, no chaser. So glad he was on the show today. Now getting to the comments from TYT members. I am Sock. Billionaires have unlimited money to light on fire, supporting the dumbest right-wing personalities. You are absolutely correct about that. I am Sock. I'm with you. And on Twitch, moving. Hey, moving. Hello, Senator Nina Turner. I love that back in the day Black Panther look. I know that's right. I don't know. I was just channeling that today. I'm feeling it too. I'm gonna have to do this more often. Let me go and put up the power to the people, baby. Let's go and take that all away. And on YouTube, Super Chat 7. Hey, 7. If recognizing that Nina is divine is wrong, I don't want to be right. Oh, 7, you know what to say to a girl. I'm just blushing and smiling from ear to ear. I really do appreciate you. I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna frame this. I'm gonna screenshot it and keep it. If recognizing Nina is divine is wrong, I don't want to be right. Oh my God, I'm sending so much love to each and every one of you. You know how I feel about you. We love you and thank you so much for your support of our show and thank you for your support of the TYT network. You are all simply the best. And I'm even more giddy because I have one of my dear friends. She is like everything. She steps out there. She's an activist. She's a writer. She's an actress. She does it all. I have V with me. And we could not be more delighted. Let me read some of this resume. I won't read it all, but she is the Tony Award-winning playwright, activist, performer, and author of the Obie Award-winning theatrical phenomenon, The Vagina Monologues, baby. And I saw The Vagina Monologues. Maybe some of you who are viewing have seen The Vagina Monologues. I think I just like to say the word. Vagina Monologues be published in over 48 languages, performed in over 140 countries, and heralded by the New York Times as one of the best American plays of the past 25 years, and that no recent hour of theater has had as greater impact worldwide. And V, you got a new book coming out, and we're gonna discuss that a little later, titled The Reckoning. And that will be released on January the 30th. Am I correct about that?
31st.
January 31st of this year. So we are so excited. So V, we're probably gonna have to have a part 2 to our interview. So I wanna put that out there right now. So today is the 50th anniversary, correct, of Roe v. Wade. And the Supreme Court, as we all know, gutted, rolled back the hands of time by dismantling Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs v. Jackson case. And you wrote an article, you've written many articles, but you were fit to be tied over this. And you basically said, you know what, we're not gonna sit idly by and let this happen. And you wrote for The Guardian an article and you really put it out. And I just have one excerpt from that. You said, will we finally agree to understand that the struggle for abortion rights is the struggle against white supremacy, is the struggle to end gender oppression and the patriarchy, so that we stand by each other when they come to each of our doors. Do you see us any closer to standing by one another when they come to our doors? And why did you frame that as the patriarchy and you threw in very strongly white supremacy?
Because we can't separate these issues out anymore, right? I mean, there was an amazing report that just came out 2 days ago from the Economic Policy Institute, which is really describing the economic of abortion bans, for example, right? And it walks through all the fiscal implications of abortion bans and how policy isn't driven really by religious beliefs, but rather forms of economic subjugation, right? And I just want to, if I can just quote what this brilliant woman, Asha Banashé, who is the author of the report, said: abortion has long been framed as a cultural, religious, or personal issue rather than a material, bread and butter economic concern. In reality, abortion rights and economic progress are fundamentally intertwined, and the loss of abortion rights means the loss of economic security, independence, and mobility for millions of people. So of course, these are all connected, because obviously, if we look at the abortion ban as an effort to hold back working class people, right, from climbing up the ladder or out of poverty, we know who that impacts, right? It impacts Black and brown women and people and trans people and non-binary people. And all these issues are woven together. And I think we are so used to siloing all our issues in this country, seeing workers' rights over here and women's rights over here and transgender rights over here and Black rights. It's one story. It's one story. And it's coalition building, it's collective building that's gonna give us the power to win these fights. Right?
So much true that definitely need to build strong coalitions. And V, do you believe that the 117th Congress and this current president did everything that they could? And I'm not talking, we're in the 118th. I'm talking about last year, the last 2 years actually. Did they do everything that they could to protect Roe v. Wade?
No, not at all. I mean, look, if it's your body that's on the line, if it's your body that is being forced to have a baby that you don't want to have, that you have no desire for, if it's your body that knows that has a baby inside you that will die in the course of the pregnancy and you don't want to carry it, if you have a baby inside you that got there from rape, if you have you know how serious this issue is. And you know the impact of that issue, and you know you will fight for your life. You will go to any extent, any extreme to make sure we have those rights. I have not seen that energy. I have not seen that energy coming out of the Congress. I have not seen that commitment, even though it is many people who were rising for abortion rights that put a lot of those people into Congress, right? And got that president elected. And it's what always happens, right? We do the work of getting people there and then they forget about who we are. And there is so much more everybody could be doing, because 85% of this country supports abortion rights. It is a fringe minority that has taken over the Supreme Court, 2 of which are sexual predators themselves. The rest, and several others put there by a sexual predator, who are determining the rights for millions of people, the rights of our bodies, the rights of our futures, the rights of our economic well-being, the rights of our healthcare, all of that. And I think if it's your body, you're gonna feel really differently about it.
And V, I mean, I just don't know how much freedom one has when you cannot control your own body. And so for the party that preaches freedom, 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 they definitely want government to be small enough to fit in a woman's womb. That is for sure. And there's a link between, abortion rights is reproductive health. All of that goes hand in hand, and also economic rights as well. So V, I'm definitely gonna have to have you come back. We only have a few more minutes, and I wanna talk about your book, The Reckoning. And I was starting to read some excerpts, and it's part memoir, part political treatise. Why did it take over 40 years to come to life?
Well, I think it was during COVID that I think it was really the beginning of what I hope would be our reckoning, right? In a lot of different directions, we were beginning to look at what I thought was the incredible lack of infrastructure in this country, which COVID made bare, right? The fact that we have no healthcare, the fact that we don't care about our nurses, the fact that we don't care about poor people and Black and brown people and the struggling people who didn't have any access to healthcare. It revealed all the terrible things that happened and were instigated by the diabolical 9 minutes, public minutes of a knee on the neck of George Floyd. It showed us the fires that were happening in California and the breathless birds that were falling out of the sky. We saw what our country was. We saw the history we haven't examined. We saw the story of this country that still remains unexamined and unprocessed, right? And unreckoned with. And for me, I was not a frontline worker. I was lucky in that I'm a writer and I was locked up in my own house, but I was also locked up with myself and my thoughts and my past and nostalgia and where I was responsible and wrong in my own life. And I thought, we are in a time of reckoning. We are in a time of reckoning. And as much as the right wants to push back and try to say we're not gonna have Black African-American studies and we're not gonna teach critical race theory and we're gonna ban books, it's happening. It is happening,
V. Well, definitely, certainly, we are going to have you back. definitely a lot of reckoning to take place both in this country and also in the world, and we cannot wait. You all, that book is available on January the 31st, and V takes us through her own personal journey and gathers us up to the present moment. V, you are such a blessing to the entire world.
You're the best. I can't say how happy I am you are in this world.
Love you, and I appreciate you as well. And thank you so much for all of your support. And I hope that I can join you. The Reckoning, everybody. Make sure you pick it up. Now, you know what I want you to do about this time? I want you to keep the faith. Always, always keep the faith. But you got to marry, you got to couple that faith with a little bit of fight. Until next time, sending you so much love.